It was only a matter of time before we looked at one of these bad adult cartoons that try and emulate Family Guy's style. Arguably the most prominent kind of bad cartoon. I may have criticized Alan Gregory and Slippin' Jimmy in the past, but to give them a little bit of credit, at least they weren't Family Guy clones. At least they tried doing their own thing. That doesn't mean they're good, of course, but, I can give them credit for not trying to emulate Family Guy's style. The fact that Alan Gregory and Slippin' Jimmy don't try to emulate Family Guy's style automatically makes them leagues better than a lot of other bad adult cartoons, including the cartoon that we are going to be looking at today, The Prince, a short-lived HBO Max show from 2021 that is about the royal family, which I know next to nothing about because I'm not British, I'm American. I feel like I don't need any knowledge or whatever on the royal family to know that this show is complete trash. The Prince was originally supposed to come out in, I believe, either April or May of 2021. However, it ended up being postponed because of Prince Philip's death that occurred around that same time. It ended up coming out in July of that year. It received tons of negative reviews and was eventually cancelled in February of 2022. I brought up before how The Prince is one of these Family Guy-esque adult cartoons, but another great way to describe it is it's Alan Gregory, except British, and a million times worse, partially because it's British. The first thing to take note of is the art style. It looks awful, unsurprisingly. A lot of the minor background characters have that pseudo Family Guy look to them, further, pushing the whole Family Guy clone thing that this show has. But the main highlights are the caricatures of the royal family, which looks terrible. What are these character designs, bro? Why are adult cartoons like this for real? This is another cartoon that will be near damn impossible for me to review. This is kind of like the polar opposite of Slippin' Jimmy. With Slippin' Jimmy, it was hard to review it because there was nothing to say about it at all. There was nothing noteworthy about it. It wasn't so bad it's good, but it wasn't offensively awful either. This, on the other hand, kind of speaks for itself as to why it's terrible. You just look at the art style and it's yeah, you already know it's garbage. There's no point in legitimately criticizing it, It just speaks for itself as to why it's bad. And the humor that this show has only further shows how bad it is, really. The titular prince is literally Stewie Griffin. That's it. It's Stewie Griffin. You know Stewie Griffin, you know the prince. It's just as simple as that. Down to the voice. It's it's so fucking blatant, Apparently the creator of this show actually worked on Family Guy on a few episodes, or he was a writer, I don't know, but he has done work on Family Guy, so that could explain why it feels so much like Family Guy, but at the same time, bro, get your own identity, bro. The queen's whole shtick in this show is she swears a lot, and that's it. Almost every scene she's in, almost every line of dialogue, she just drops the F-bomb, and that's meant to be funny, because she swears a lot, and that's funny and hilarious, guys, am I right? I don't even know what to say for the rest of these characters, because I genuinely just have a hard time describing them, because you just look at the character designs and I think it just says everything, honestly. Bro, Meghan Markle in this show looks like a fucking Go Anime character. How do you do that, man? How do you straight up do that, I keep talking about pseudo Family Guy, bro, no, this is straight up, this is pseudo Go Anime, and Go Animate already is pseudo Family Guy. It's the pseudo Family Guy to end all pseudo Family Guys. To give this show a very, very, very little bit of credit, there is one subplot in this show that I actually think is not that terrible. In one of the early episodes of the show, the queen requests flum tarts, which are apparently her favorite treat. It turns out underneath the castle are a bunch of creatures that make the flum tarts. I believe these were humans that were enslaved into just making the flum tarts, but I have no idea. In one episode, the queen decides that she doesn't like the flum tarts anymore and she doesn't want them made, which prompts the servants to basically get rid of the creatures and burn all of them. Only one servant survives the burning and decides to take revenge on the royal family and also avenge those that were burned. He disguises himself as a servant named Kevin. In the final episode of the show, the queen requests the flum tarts again, which concerns the servants. The episode and the series as a whole ends with Kevin putting poison into the flum tarts and moving the cart up to the castle. Now, even though this is a terrible show and I definitely don't want a season 2 to happen, it does honestly kind of suck when a show ends with a cliffhanger. Regardless of how bad a show is, it always sucks when it ends with a cliffhanger, you know? At the same time, though, I don't think there is a single human being in this world that wants a second season of this garbage made because, well, I mean, look at it, bro. Look at it. I feel like this whole Kevin subplot could actually work if it was in a better cartoon. I find it more interesting than the main plot involving the royal family doing God knows what. And I hate that it's wasted on this when this deserves to be in a much better show. Unfortunately, this subplot is not enough to save the show. You know, while making this video, I made a realization. In retrospect, this could very possibly be the first of many, many, many HBO Max Ls. All of the crap that HBO Max has done in the last 2 years or so, it started with this. I mean, think about it, okay? This came out in the summer of 2021, received largely negative reviews, and then it was canceled after one season because of the negative reviews. And then after that, you had the cancellation of that Batgirl movie, which was supposed to come out on HBO Max and was basically finished, to my knowledge, before just getting canceled, unreleased. And then shortly after that, you had the removal of various different shows on HBO Max, with Infinity Train and Close Enough being the most notable ones. I wouldn't be surprised at all if The Prince was still up on HBO Max. I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if that somehow survived the great HBO Max purge of 2022. And then following that, HBO Max brought us 2 of the most hated shows of 2023. Yeah, it's genuinely crazy how many L's HBO Max has taken in the last 2 years or so. And it all started with this. You cannot convince me otherwise. You cannot tell me that this wasn't the beginning of the end for Warner Bros. And HBO Max. I'm aware that this is actually a Fox cartoon and not from HBO Max or Warner Bros. It's just simply distributed onto HBO Max. And I'm aware that this cartoon came out in mid-2021 before the Warner Bros. Discovery merger happened. But I don't care. I still want to stick to my conspiracy theory that this is what caused the downfall of HBO Max and Warner Bros. This is what led to Velma and The Idol and the removal of a bunch of shows. You know, this led to that. You cannot convince me otherwise. We all pin the blame on David What's-His-Face over here, when in reality, Gary Janetti over here, he was the real criminal mastermind behind it all. He was the one that started it. Yeah, I might be stretching it a bit, but I won't lie, it is very interesting to see this be like the first of HBO Max's many L's. Like, it's actually insane. Anyways, I'm gonna try and describe what happens in at least one episode, the first episode of the show, just so you can get an idea of how truly awful this show is, for real. Every episode starts off with a message stating that the show is a parody that shouldn't be taken seriously, and that certain recent events, referring to Prince Philip's death that occurred shortly before the release of the show, won't be brought up because the show is, again, a parody. All that's good and well, but unfortunately, being a parody doesn't change the fact that this is one of the most agonizingly unfunny things I've ever watched, and if I were to be honest, I think this show actually kind of fails at being a parody. You would think that because this is a parody, there would be like critiques of the royal family, a political satire of the royal family, if you will. I mean, the show would probably still be trash if it was like that, but at least it would be, you know, something. But no, that's not what it is at all. This is literally Family Guy, except with the royal family, which is that sure is a hilarious and original concept. That's so crazy, guys. I wish Clone High didn't get canceled when it first came out. Like, you have no idea. I've never even seen Clone High, but I just wanted to say that I have this gut feeling in me that if Clone High, like, kept going and became, like, a long-running show, it would probably have, like, the same, like, impact on adult animation that, like, The Simpsons and South Park and whatever had, because it doesn't feel like, it feels different from, like, all other adult cartoons, you know? I have a conspiracy theory that if Clone High didn't get cancelled, the world of adult animation nowadays would be far different from what it is now. I don't know why, but I feel like there's a correlation between Clone High getting cancelled and most modern adult cartoons trying and failing to emulate Family Guy's style. I don't know how to further elaborate on this either. It just something that makes sense to me for some weird reason. Anyways, the first episode involves Prince George, the titular prince of the show, trying to get Kelly Ripa to follow him on Instagram. So he sets up an event where she and several other people can get knighted and become dames or something like that. I don't know, British people stuff. I'm too American to understand. Now, I want to imagine most of you watching this are going to be asking, who is Kelly Ripa? And I have no clue, to be honest. Apparently she's a talk show host. She's appeared in a few shows that I'm familiar with, but her name straight up doesn't ring a bell to me, so I don't know why, of all people, they went with this literal nobody. I initially thought that she was like someone famous in the UK, and that's why I didn't know who she was, but nope. She's American. Just, alright, sure, I guess. Whatever the case may be, Prince George hopes that by making Kelly Ripa a dame, she'll follow him on Instagram. There's a lot of different subplots in this show. It's not just the Kevin subplot that I brought up earlier. I'm not gonna bring up all the subplots in this show because it's not worth it at all. And because the show got cancelled after only one season, essentially all of them end with like cliffhangers never to be resolved. But I will bring up that there's a subplot involving Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, with the former trying to find a job and the latter trying to adjust to life in America. It's not a funny subplot or anything like that, but honestly I kind of see potential in it. I don't know, I have this feeling that like this probably could work, you know, a couple that used to live in the UK and like now they have to try and adjust to life in America, something like similar to that could possibly work. I'm not sure. It's not as strong as the Kevin subplot, but it could maybe work somewhat. I don't know. This is probably the only show in existence where the subplots are considerably more interesting than the actual plots. Eventually, near the end of the series, Meghan and Harry move back in with the royal family in the UK, so yeah, that ended up being pointless. Anyways, the ceremony begins, and in addition to Kelly Ripa being there, Greta Thunberg is also there, because why the not? And of course she looks like that. I gotta love him, man. I love adult cartoons so much. They're so good, guys. They're so great. I also want to bring up that she is in this for essentially no reason. Like, if they included her to satirize her climate change stuff, then at least that would be something, but no. They do literally almost nothing with her at all. The only thing they do with her is a joke at the end of the episode where Prince George claims that it was freezing that day, meaning Greta didn't have much to say. And that's it. She's in this just for the sake of being in this, because it's a famous person. Laugh. The episode ends with Prince George unfollowing Kelly, which I guess is supposed to be funny. It's not very funny, like at all. And that's it. Admittedly, this was very brief, but I just really cannot be bothered to go into more detail about the episodes of this. This honestly does kind of speak for itself as to why it's bad. And I gotta be honest with y'all, in addition to this show being awful, part of the reason why I have like this really bitter, cynical attitude towards it is because this video has been in development hell for over 2 months. I started working on this video in early August and it was supposed to come out in the middle of the month, but numerous things caused me to delay the video over and over and over again, and eventually I just reached a point where I just wanted to get this garbage over with and just move on to other things, which is thankfully happening now after all this time. Something big came up in early August that forced me to postpone the video, and I wanted to have it out by the end of the month, and then the 1-year anniversary of the Queen's death was coming up, and I didn't want to deal with the whole, like, oh, it's disrespectful, bad timing, whatever, so I had to further postpone the video, and then I had, like, this, just a lot of stuff came up, and it basically just made me think, you know what, I'm just done, I just want to finish this and get it the f*** over with now. So here we are now. The Prince is one of the worst cartoons I've ever seen, easily. I've genuinely never seen something just so unfunny like this. Something just so devoid of humor. And I swear, there are literal moments in this show where there is no jokes at all. They reference something and then, like, they don't follow it up with a joke at all. In one episode, there's a scene where Prince George brings up Demi Lovato coming out as non-binary, and that's it. That's the joke, if you can even call it that. He just acknowledges, oh, Demi Lovato is non-binary, good for them, and that's it. It has no effect on the rest of the episode. It's in there just because it serves no purpose. One of the episodes ends with a musical number involving all of the main characters of the show, and it is one of the hardest things I've ever had to sit through in my life. It goes on for like 4 minutes, almost 5 minutes, I believe, and it just never f***ing ends. It is awful. I really have a hard time trying to explain why this is bad. I think you just look at the character designs of the royal family, and that just, it explains everything for you. I had a really hard time deciding how this compared to the Red Ape family, especially given how this was meant to come out much earlier on. This was, I think, meant to be like the 6th episode or so of the show, and then it became the 7th, and then became the 8th, and so on and so on. And like during that time, I watched this. I watched the Red Ape family. And that became the worst cartoon. This was the worst cartoon I looked at prior to Red Ape Family. And upon rewatching it, I had a very hard time deciding if this was worse or if Red Ape Family was worse. I cannot decide it now. I've come to the conclusion that both are tied for being equally terrible. It is impossible for me to decide if I think this is worse or if I think the Red Ape Family is worse, and I'm probably gonna, like, you know, switch it around. Like, sometimes I'll think Red Ape Family is worse, sometimes I'll think the Prince is worse. I don't know. Whatever the case may be, this is a terrible show, and it is awful. Listen, you know, Family Guy is not a bad show, but like, I cannot deny the negative impact that it has had on animation history. I cannot ignore the large amount of garbage that it has spawned, and this is just the first of many. There are other Family Guy-esque cartoons that I have to look at on this series, and I am not looking forward to any of them. I can only hope that none of them come close to being as awful as The Prince. And I must bring up how crazy it is that this was the beginning of the end for HBO Max, the beginning of their downfall. It was this, and then it was the cancellation of Batgirl, and then it was the removal of various shows like Close Enough and Infinity Train and whatever, and then it was Velma, and then it was The Idol. It's genuinely mind-boggling to me. I hate this show. I really hate this show. It is one of the worst cartoons ever made. My god, this is... I don't care if it's satire. I don't care if it's parody. It doesn't even work as a parody, because again, if this was like a political satire or something, then like sure, but it's not even that. It's literally, it's Family Guy except with the royal family. That's such a great concept, oh wow. Yeah, this is garbage. I'm so sorry. I want to get this video out of the way because this video has been in the works for like 2 months now, and I just want to finish it right now. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, then be sure to like, and if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing, as it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you everyone for watching this video, and I will see you all next time. Adios.